Hi, do you know who I am? Well, I work for the CIA. That's just sort of like a avocation, let's say. I mean, I like it. I really like it. I help save the world. Protect the president, protect the Defense Department, and all this other shit. But that's just a sideline. My main occupation is basically trying to figure out a way to put the stopper on John. Who's John? Well, I usually use a euphemism, J-O-N. J as in Juno, O as in Oscar, N as in Nephilim. Right. Well, John. But what is his real name? Well, his real name, he calls himself the Master. But he used to call himself the Student. Right. But anyway, so John, sometimes called Jesus of Nazareth, had a certain nasty habit when he became that creature. Initially, okay, I'm a Time Lord. That is, I exist at the continuum, at the end of time. And I travel through time as a Time Lord. And I have to kind of preserve time. I preserve time, I preserve myself. Which is kind of like one of those things that almost always you have to do. Of course, you don't have to. And this is the conundrum. My friends, who I will call the Vulcans, for lack of a better term, came to me at the end of time and said, you must have children. We know you have children, but you have to actually act to have children. So I had to have children. So I had John through the instrumentality of, well, the archivist, which is of course like a giant computer, which is actually basically the universe. And well, and then also she made herself really, really hot, and really made it easy to do. Anyway, so that's what happened. So we had John, and John came out of the, I guess out of the compartment we had him in, where he was growing. He came out really quick. He was crazy, and I asked Mother, that is, my wife, who I sometimes call Traveler, because she travels through time with me. Why was John mad? Well, John didn't call himself John then. He called himself the Student. Minnesota said, you should call yourself the Student, so he called himself the Student. But he was quite crazy, and he went through the vortex, took my ship, and went through the vortex. Now, Mother, that is the archivist, that is the librarian, that is the Akashic field, my wife, pushed him from where he wanted to go, where I had been investigating the dual nature of myself and others like me, which was about 5 billion years ago. Pushed him back into the future, toward the future, bounced him, so to speak, to approximately 65 million years from standard reference point. But that's not actually correct. It was 3.65 billion years from standard reference point. The problem is the dates are murky. And of course he caused the extinction of the dinosaurs, who were destined to rule the earth and be a sentient race and be beautiful in all aspects. And they, unfortunately, were replaced by monkeys, that is, mammals. And anyway, since John was in this era, and he still had his form, he had taken everything with him. I mean, he cleaned out his room and took everything with him, which he's not supposed to do. He came in with a big blast, because that's the problem with Time Lords. All their stuff is, well, I guess you say, dense, sort of like I am right now. But he, existed. Things happened. But I'm trying to get to the point of this story. The story is that John, when he got to an era which is commonly called the Christian era, well, actually just before the Christian era started, he persuaded some, I guess you'd say, sorcerers in Egypt to help him find a place in Judea, more specifically Nazareth. So they traveled north to visit a man named Joseph, and said, "We need to have you have a wife, and we want you to take this wife that we will give you, who's we'll name Mary." We could have named her Alice, but anyway, we're going to name her Mary. You should take her as your own, and also the child that comes with her, a young man, you will call Jesus. And you must accept these conditions. If you don't, we'll take the money away that we had given you, and we'll punish you severely through sorcery. Well, Joseph agreed, and then, of course, they went back to Egypt, told John, "Everything's cool, cat. Head on north." So anyway, so they went back. This time they brought Jesus, or John, with them. Anyway, separated. John snuck over to Joseph's house, and he said, "Here's the introduction," which is a special kind of like gift, like big jewels, money. And Joseph was like, "Wow!" But he also had brought with him Mary. So Mary and John and Joseph, and everybody said, "Ooh." And then, so anyway, when they moved to a certain section of town that nobody knew them, Mary said, or John said, Joseph said, "Look, this is my wife Mary, and this is my son Jesus." Anyway, the thing is, when Jesus was supposed to have been executed by the Romans, he wasn't, because he committed a fraud. He took Mary and he beat her severely, as did his disciples, his merry men, and anyway, caused her to look like a man, a bloody man. And they dressed her up, they cut out her tongue. Anyway, they took her to the Garden of Gethsemane, and they deceived the Romans into thinking that Mary, a woman, was Jesus, a man. They took Mary, a.k.a. Jesus, and they crucified her. But in fact, what happened in reality is she wasn't quite dead. She came off the cross. The disciples took her to a field and threw her to wild dogs to devour. That's what happened to Mary. But I had left a lot of children back in the continuum, and including my true father, the Overlord. And anyway, they took Mary up to heaven, aka the continuum, and then at last she was saved, and we elevated her to a status equal to ours, and that's how it went. I tell you this in truth, because the truth shall set you free. And all the muses in the world have known this, and they have been reporting this through all kinds of creative works, which you could think of this as a creative work.